Hello, hello, my precious, precious pearls. I hope everyone is doing great today. Well, tonight for me, I changed the date of the webinar now that we are doing webinars. So I prefer to do them a little bit later at night so that everyone can join from everywhere around the world because this group is so diverse and it has people from all over the world. So I'm glad that you are here with me today. And I am so excited about today because it's been the topic of the week. So we've been talking about not procrastination. We've been talking about decluttering from the beginning of this week. And for those of you, in case you are new here and in case you have missed it, I do have a special ebook that I just put out this week about cluttering and decluttering. Actually, this is what we are doing today. We are trying to find out how to declutter. So I just finished my night routine. So at night, usually I also do some meditations before I finish the day. So I finish the day with meditations, actually, and I start my day with meditations. And this is something that I always encourage you to do because, when you meditate, your energy becomes more centered and you feel more grounded, you feel more at ease, and you also feel that, you are present. So meditation is really very important for me. I mean, I didn't used to meditate a lot years back, but then when I understood the importance of meditation, now I cannot stop myself. I hope everyone is doing great today. I really wish that you can be as active as possible. If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask them. And I will be asking you if you have some, feedback or some reactions to what I'm going to be saying today and what I'm going to be talking about. So I hope we can be as interactive as possible because now we are on a webinar. So this is an option. And just so you know, we're going to be together for almost 1 hour. And the topic of today is, as I said, about cluttering and decluttering, actually, not about cluttering, about decluttering and the importance of decluttering, especially in 3 main areas in our lives. Number 1, the space. Number 2, our thoughts. And number 3, our priorities. So these are the 3 points that I will be focusing on today. And if you have any comments or any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box and I'll take those, and if I have any answers, I'll answer them at the end of the webinar, just to make sure that, we are all aware of what is going to be happening. So I'm just going to open the chat and I'm going to put it here somewhere so that I can see it. And if you have any questions, if you have any comments, I would love to hear from you. So thank you for being here today. And without further ado, let me just tell you a little story about myself. Well, about myself, and the story is very much related to clutter. So when I was a kid, I remember there was this grocery shop in our neighborhood. I used to call the grocery shop Ammo Subra because the owner of the place was called Subra, right? That's the owner of the place. And Ammo in Arabic means, that's how you respectfully address an elderly man. So I used to be like 4 or 5. I remember 5 mostly. And from the age of 5 until the age of, I think, 10, right? I used to love going to Ammo Subra's shop. Now, as a child, the reason why I used to love going there, it was for me like a trip to Wonderland, because I always felt like I'm Alice in Wonderland because every time I used to go there. So imagine, like, I'm even tiny now, so I'm not like the biggest person in the world. So I'm quite little. And when I was a child, I was even shorter, right? I was much smaller. So what used to happen is I used to go there, and every time I'm there, I would go inside and I would look around me. This guy, literally, Ammo Subra, had zero space for anything or anyone actually to go inside. I always wondered, how did he manage to go inside? And you go in and then there are these big towers of stuff. Everything that he is selling is laid out there. It's like there is no store for the space. Any grocery store or any big mega store, they would have a space where they would put everything, so that they can just bring things out when the shelves are running out of items. Except not Amo Subra, because Amo Subra would put everything out. So really, every time I used to go there, it was for me like going inside a maze and discovering, new stuff. And especially every time he would bring stuff that did not exist before. It was like a game for me and my siblings as well, when we used to go and just, figure out if there are new stuff inside the grocery shop. And for me, that was like the way things always went when we went to Amo Subra's shop. And it was a fun exercise. And it was something fun that I used to do with my siblings when I used to live back home where I am from. And as I grew older, I started realizing every time I would go to Amo Subra's shop, I started feeling different. I started feeling a little bit like there's a weight on my shoulders every time I would go. It was not fun anymore because I was a little bit bigger. So every time I used to go there now, I would be very careful as to how I would move, because if I make just the slightest wrong move, I would be worried that something would fall on me, right? So I would be like, oh my God, okay, how am I going to move? Because if I move just 1 inch more, something might really, like, my safety was at stake, And then as I became even older, and when we are like in our teens, we want to have our bag with us, and we're like maybe wearing just the small heels, and we're not really very comfortable, and we're a bit clumsy. You cannot be clumsy in Amo Subra's shop, because if you are clumsy, that means things are going to fall off, and you're going to be like, oh, what is happening? This was my experience with Amo Subra's shop. And I truly believe that even if I go today, God knows if he's still alive, God bless him. But if he's still there, I can assure you 100% that his shop would look exactly the same way it looked to me when I was 5, growing up to 10 years, or even later on in my life. Now, you would think, why is Maysoon telling us this story? What does it all mean? So remember, we're talking about clutter. I have a few points that I want to mention today, because clutter, when people are cluttering, it's very interesting that the people who clutter, actually, they know exactly where every single thing is. So if I would go to Ammo Subra and tell him I want, I don't know, like a chocolate that is not apparent to me, I really cannot see it anywhere. He, on the other hand, would know exactly where it is. And he would go and fetch it for me. And even Ammo Subra used to walk like tiptoeing inside his own shop just to make sure that nothing falls off, and that nobody gets hurt. So the reason why I'm telling you about this story is that Ammo Subra was actually a hoarder. So everything that he had in this shop, and I don't know why, but I used to have the feeling that things do not, like, there is no turnaround in his shop. I would always check everything that I would buy to make sure that it's like the expiry date is not gone. It's like it's still feasible. I can still use whatever I am buying, or I can still eat whatever I'm buying from his shop. So I would think, and because I live in a home where I know firsthand what clutter means and what clutter is, because my mom, God bless her, is a hoarder herself, and she loves to keep everything. I mean, if you want to punish my mom, you would ask her to get rid of her stuff, or any stuff, as a matter of fact. It doesn't necessarily have to be hers, just anything. So for her, getting rid of anything is a painful act. And this happens to everyone who clutters. Now, you would think, why? Why does this happen to people who clutter? Why is clutter important? Why are things very important? You see, most of the time, what happens is, in our subconscious mind, there's some sort of feeling of insecurity and feeling especially of lack. Every time we think we want to keep something, think about the process that your brain goes through when you are deciding to keep something. Like the things that you say to yourself. If you have some of the, like, if you are coming up with some ideas, please write them down in the chat box. I would like to hear from you. I would like to see if we are on the same wavelength when it comes to clutter. Most of the time when we are thinking of, I want to keep this, what we think is, first thing, I'm not going to throw this because who knows, maybe I will need it later. Or it's a shame to throw this. It looks nice, no, I'm not going to throw it. Let's talk about, let's say, a piece of cloth, right? That I haven't been wearing for ages. But yet, I always manage to convince myself in my mind that I need to keep it, that I need it, Or like, what if later I cannot afford to buy this again? I cannot get rid of it. So when we start thinking this way, we are thinking from lack, especially when it comes to the part that is related to whether I can afford it later or not. So the minute we start thinking, oh no, I'm not going to get rid of this because maybe I can't buy it later. Maybe I won't be able to afford it. Or maybe I will need it. And by the time I need it, I cannot get it, So why should I throw it? No, I will keep it. And the more we think of it this way, that becomes not a habit. It becomes literally how we lead our life, literally. And it doesn't stop in our space. Because clutter, like I said at the beginning of this webinar, that clutter does not only appear in our space. Clutter is also in our thoughts, and clutter is also in our priorities, among so many other things, actually. It's not today I'm going to be focusing on these three only, but clutter is actually also in our time. Clutter can be found in our offices, in our office space. Today we're talking about space, priorities, thoughts and priorities, but it also appears in those other two places, mainly time and also there's a third one, which is people. we also clutter people around us. And I think I will be doing one webinar only about how we clutter people around us, because it's such a vast topic to talk about. So going back to cluttering our space. And when I used to go to Abu Subra, and that feeling as I was getting older, I started feeling like, there's something weighing on me when I used to go to his shop. And that, my friends, is the energy of the space that Ammo Subra had in his shop. Because, everything is made up of atoms, right? We are all made up of atoms. And then atoms, when they combine, they become molecules, and then they become tissues, and then they become organs. And then we have, like when it comes to us, we have our body, but that also applies to everything else around us. So everything is made up of atoms. And atoms, they have a vibration. They are not fixed. So, like when we go to solid stuff, the vibration of the atoms is very, 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 very minimal, like close to zero. And that's why things become solid. And the more the higher the vibration of the atoms, the more there is space between them, and the more there is fluidity in that object or whatever it is. And then when we get to the abstract or the air, that the things that we cannot touch or see, this means that the atoms are vibrating in such a high vibration that we cannot really grasp. So imagine that everything is about vibration. So everything is about energy, because vibration creates energy. So if I am energy and everything around me is energy, right? And that space is emitting a lot of energy. If the more stuff we have inside that space, the bigger the space the energy will occupy, right? So my energy is like, it's like, if you know about the aura, my energy is my aura. So my aura is really very big as a person, right? People's auras are really, really, really big. Now, if everything around us has energy, it means that these items, these things, they also occupy a certain space with their energy. And the more they occupy space with their energy, the less space we have for our own energy. And this is why when we go inside, and if you've experienced it any time, tell me in the comments. I'd like to know, like when you go into a space that is new to you, and and even a space that you actually know, but which is full of stuff, full of things, how do you feel? Like, do you feel like you are still like all energetic and or do you feel like somehow your energy drops down? I can tell you from my personal experience, even today, every time I go to visit my parents in my home country, every single time, I kid you not, when I go inside my parents' house, my energy drops, and it drops in a way that is unbelievable. I feel like I'm suffocating. I feel like there is no place for me. There's no space for me to move around, and there's no space for my aura to actually exist. So every time I would go to visit them, it's like going inside the house is like a mission impossible. And the one thing that I want to do is just leave, So when things are cluttered around us, and there are lots of things lying around, first of all, think about it this way. let's say you live in a space and you have a lot of things laying around. How inviting do you think your space is for anyone to come in and just be present with you? Not so much, right? Let me know. So every time we go into a space where there's a lot of clutter, our energy gets affected. Our aura does not really have the space to exist. And this is why we feel like there's a burden on our shoulders. So imagine yourself actually living inside that space. If this is you, or if you are having a lot of clutter around you, let me know in the comments and in the chat. Say like, right, clutter. I would know that you are that person who has a lot of things around you and you would love to, clear your space and have more space for your own energy instead of having space for everything around you except you know and the beauty of when you are working with clutter or when you want to declutter, doing the decluttering in the right way means that you will do it once and for all. Now, I want you to stick to the end of the webinar because I have an invitation for you. I'm going to show you, I'm going to tell you what I have put together so that I can actually help people to get out of their clutter once and for all. So when you do the decluttering exercise and decluttering your space, which is your space is your sanctuary. Yes, your space is where you want to be and feel happy, feel joyful, feel safe, feel secure, and feel free. Freedom is not only about being free to do the things that you want or being free to work wherever you want to work or work whenever you want to work. Freedom is also about you feeling like it's like you can fly. So imagine you are in a space where you can even hardly move. That freedom, you can say goodbye to that freedom because it's not happening, because there's no way for your aura or even for you to move around, and that would be limiting and so far away from being free, right? So that's when it comes to the space and how clutter really affects our space. Now, I mentioned earlier, it's very interesting that people who clutter, like I will tell you, for example, with my mom. Today, if I go to my mom's house and I remove something from the clutter that she has, if I throw it away, even if it is hiding in God knows where, she would notice that it is not there. So, which is very interesting because that means that people who clutter, in their mind, actually, it's true that they come from a space of lack and from a space of it's an issue, it's a problem. It's not something that everyone has. When we clutter, when we become like real hoarders, it means we keep everything, we throw nothing, really nothing. This is when things become really, really alarming and something needs to be done because it could affect our health, because energy is not the only thing that happens. Imagine you are sitting in a space where there are lots of things and stuff collect dust, right? And they collect dirt. And God knows we will end up with having a lot of insects, a lot of parasites. Everything would be a play, like would make the space that we are in kind of like a hazardous space. So a place where really we might get hurt. We might get even sick, because we are in a place where everything does not is not being like we get rid of nothing, right? So imagine it this way. Now, for my mom, for example, if I would go today and tell her, and I actually did this exercise two years ago because my father was not feeling well, I had to go, and I realized that my father, when he was not, he was having some delirious moments, he would be talking to things that are lying around, to pictures, like hundreds of pictures that are lying around in the house. He would be kind of like talking to them. So everything around him was triggering him. The passage that he needed to walk from his bedroom, let's go to the restroom, was full of stuff. And my dad is old, and he needed to walk. I would always worry about him tripping because literally there's no space for him to walk. This is how difficult it is, when someone is a hoarder. Now, when I was visiting then, because my father was sick and I really needed to do something about that space, I started removing things around. And I kid you not, my mom became so emotional. And it was like, for me, I was there to help my dad. And now the whole thing became about her, because we were, like, my siblings went too, we were just removing stuff for her. And it was this much hurtful for her, because it's kind of like you are removing a piece of her from that space. And this is how bad it is when we are in that space, when we are hoarders. This is how difficult it is for the person who is keeping this stuff to get rid of them. And that's why it's important to understand why, in the first place, people tend to clutter. What is the underlying reason for them to clutter? If you have an answer for that, please let me know in the comments below. If you think you might know what's the reason behind the underlying reason. I already spoke about, not feeling safe, coming from lack, always thinking that I don't have enough, and what if I need it, and when I need it, I don't have the means to buy it. So we're always coming from lack when we're talking about clutter. And that is the clutter that is related specifically to our space. Now, everyone who clutters their space, they also tend to clutter every other aspect in their life, but like I said earlier, people who clutter are also very organized. Why? Because they remember everything that they have, and they remember, like, if you ask them for an inventory, they can write it down for you. This is how much they know about the clutter that they have. And that, when it comes to space. Now, the main thing that we need to do when it comes to space, and the best thing that we can do, is when we start decluttering. First of all, we want, number one, we want to, first of all, admit that we have a lot of clutter. Because if we don't admit, just like anything else, if you don't admit you have a problem, there's no way you will be able to fix it. So number one, we want to admit that we have a lot of clutter, and that these things that are lying around are not really things that we need, or things that are useful for us, or things that are really, major for us to have in our life. So that's number one. Then number two, when you want to declutter, you want to do this exercise. You want to be able to do this exercise once and for all. And this is one thing that I'm going to share with you at the end in my invitation for you. So we want to be able to do this exercise once and for all. And the third and most important thing is, once we do these two, so when we admit and when we do the exercise in the right way, and that is a once and for all time, the third thing that happens is our mindset. The way we think about buying or bringing things into our space changes. And that's also something that I have. Part of the program that I've developed are these two things: how to declutter completely once and for all, and how to become a smart and knowing and mindful and aware buyer, and let's say collector. It's not that you are collecting stuff, but it's that you are like bringing things into your space. So these are the three main things that are very important for us to move from being in a cluttered space to become in a clutter-free space. And when you are in a clutter-free space, I tell you, the shift in your energy is amazing. I am not a hoarder myself because, as I grew up in a house where my mom used to hoard all the time, I made it like a mission for me in my life not to have extra stuff. And even with that, I managed somehow, because I used to move from house to house to house where I currently live. And I've been living here in this country for 23 years. So you can imagine how many things I might have collected over the years. And every time I move home, I am in a place where, I would need to have less stuff so that I can fit them in the new space, because the spaces are not all the same, right? When you move from one house to another, sometimes you are living in a 4-bedroom and then you have to move to a 2-bedroom, and you want to figure out what are the things that you want to keep, right? Because the funny thing is, the more space we have around us, the more ability we have somehow in our brain to fill that space. So becoming that aware and that smart buyer is a tricky thing, and it's a very important thing to do, because we don't want to fall in the trap where, when we have a lot of space around us, we want to find things to fill that space. No, because the energy of the space, when it's clearer, that freedom for you, that feeling of elevation, like you have zero burden, you will really, like, physically, you will feel light. I tell you, you will feel light. So for example, when I came back like 2 years ago, when I came back from visiting my parents, I was like, you know what, I'm going to clear my space. And I'm not a hoarder, right? So I went through the whole exercise again for myself, and this time I really did it like in the right way, so that I don't do it ever again. And I tell you, I removed stuff from my own, like, let's just talking about my wardrobe. I had like 17 huge bags full of stuff that I gave away. That night, because this exercise, by the way, takes a long time to fulfill. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens on intervals and over several days. But that night, when I removed those 17 extra bags, literally just removed them from my bedroom, from my cupboards, outside of my bedroom. That night, I probably had the best sleep I had since I moved to my current home. And I've been living here for almost 12 years. So this is how effective it is to clear your space. And that, when it comes to space, my dear friends. Now, moving from space and cluttering your space or decluttering your space to decluttering your thoughts. And please, I would love it if you can tell me in the comments below if this has been useful and if this information is actually helpful for you in your current situation or where you are right now. Moving to decluttering your thoughts. Now, studies show, there are several studies, but a lot of studies say that we think, or we have almost between 70 and 80,000 thoughts per day. And some studies show that we have around 7,000 thoughts per day. Now, whether we have 7,000 or 70,000, I think that's a lot of thinking. These are a lot of thoughts. And thoughts are not just me thinking of something very specific. Everything that happens in my life, in every single second, every single hour of every single day, is a thought. So now, for example, I am talking to you. This is a thought. This is a thought process. In my brain, there has been a very specific line of orders that have been given to my nervous system from, in my neurons, in my nervous system, to do this act of talking right now. And the same applies to you. Now you are watching me and you are processing everything that I'm saying, and you are thinking about the things that I'm saying. All of these are thoughts, like especially these days, because these days when we are alert, we have a million things that we go through in our life, in our day-to-day life. Like the minute you hold your phone and you start looking at your phone with social media, with your emails, with your to-do lists, with your calendar, with your schedule, with your meetings, with everything, all of these things, every single second that you spend time that you are aware of, and sometimes you are not aware of it, this is a thought. Like me breathing right now is actually a thought. And imagine whether they are 6,000 or 7,000 or 70,000 thoughts that we are thinking of every single day. Imagine that we have to do this in full awareness. Do you think we would have time? This is how amazing our creation is. This is how amazing this body of ours, or this temple of ours, is amazing, because it can run a lot of things, or a lot of these thoughts actually run on autopilot in our subconscious mind, in our body. Our heart does not really wait for me to consciously, right, tell it to beat. And the blood does not wait for me to consciously tell it to circulate. My kidneys do not wait for me to tell them to do their job. They do their job automatically on autopilot. My whole body is running on autopilot. But these, my dear pearls, these are thoughts. Whether I'm aware of them or not is a different story. Now, these are not the thoughts that we want to declutter. The thoughts that we want to declutter are the thoughts that we are thinking of every day, nonstop. And most of them are thoughts that are not related to the present moment. So think about it this way. Let's say Now, I was telling you about the story of Ammo Subra and the story of my mom and when my dad was sick. So all of these are thoughts that are happening in my mind. The thing is, when these thoughts are taking place, I am, as a person, as a human being right now, the fact that I am able to go back in these thoughts, and like I told you, like when I was telling you about Ammo Subra's shop and how I used to feel when I would go and visit him, or go, not visit him, but go to his shop and try to buy stuff from him. Even now, like you see, I feel the burden now, because there are so many thoughts that are happening in my mind now when I'm saying the things that I'm saying. My brain and my mind is remembering every single detail about those incidents when I used to go. And this is how many thoughts are happening every time I am addressing a specific point. And this does not happen only to me. This happens to everybody, every single person out there who is going through any thinking process will be having this many thoughts. We're talking about those 6,000, between 6,000 or 7,000 and 70,000. Now, why is decluttering our thoughts important? Today, if I have a million things that I'm thinking about, but I really want to focus on one thing, I really want to get to a very specific point, or I want to, let's talk about manifestation. When you want to manifest, you want to manifest one thing, right? And for you to focus on that one thing is a difficult thing, because there are those 70 or 7 to 70,000 thoughts that are running in your mind, in your being. So how is it possible for you to actually focus on that one thought? A lot of people think that it's impossible, really, to stop thinking about a lot of things. But there are several exercises that you can do that actually can help you focus on one thing and one thing only. For example, breath work. There are lots of breath work that can facilitate you thinking of one thing, and sometimes really thinking of nothing. Meditation is another exercise, and meditation combined with breath work is like the best thing you can ever do for you to declutter your thoughts. So that's one of the things that you can, that's one of the exercises that you can do to actually declutter your thoughts. And the importance of decluttering your thoughts is basically to get focused and to become centered in one place where you really, like, this is the most important thing for you right now. And finding out actually that this is the most important thing for you right now requires you to declutter your thoughts so that you can focus on that one specific thought. And again, decluttering your thoughts is a tricky exercise. Think about it this way. Let's say today I am moving houses, and I'm moving to a house that already has furniture in it. For me to be able to put my new furniture, I need to remove the existing furniture, right? Which means that the same thing applies in my mind. So in my mind, if I want to think of something specific, it means that in that space where those thoughts need to be, because there are other thoughts sitting there, for those thoughts to actually exist, I need to get rid of these thoughts. And this is where the work on our limitations happen. This is where we start working on our limiting beliefs, because our limiting beliefs are also thoughts. They are thoughts and they are limitations that we have created for ourselves since we were kids, if this is where they started, or we might have even inherited them from others, and they are taking a space in our mind that is not allowing us to bring in new thoughts that are actually helpful for us, or that are actually important for us to move forward, rather than to stay stuck in these very specific thoughts or these very specific limitations that at one given point in time in our life we have created them because they made sense for us. They were helpful in that very specific moment when we created those thoughts. They were beneficial for us. And once we created them and we kept on repeating them, they became part of who we are, right? And remember, all of these are thoughts, right? All of these are our like day-to-day life, right? And if I want to bring something new to my life, it's like literally like bringing something new to your space. You want to make space for it. And to make space for it, you want to get rid of the things that are blocking that space. And these things are the thoughts that we call our limiting beliefs, the thoughts that are blocking us, the thoughts that are hindering us, the thoughts that are stopping us from moving forward, from getting to better places than the places that where we are today. And that's why it's very important to remember that every time we want to declutter our thoughts, it's not about the thoughts that we are thinking of right now. It's about those habits and that conditioning that we've been through throughout all our life to become the person who we are today. And yet, as I said, they have served us for so long, but now we feel that they are not serving us anymore. And this is why we consciously take a decision to declutter our thoughts. And when we take decisions to declutter our thoughts, we are doing that because we want to move forward. We are doing that because we realize that those thoughts are now hindering us. They're not helping us anymore. They are bringing us to a place where instead of moving forward, we are either stuck or sometimes even going backwards. Now, why did I put decluttering our priorities at the very end? Because as simple as it is, once you declutter your space and your thoughts, decluttering your priorities becomes an easy exercise, because now you have clarity in your mind and you have space in your space, if that makes sense. So that clarity that you have in your mind because you have decluttered your thoughts, and that space that you have in your space, that empty space, that space that allows you to move around, that allows you to become a better person, that allows you to elevate because it's open for you to elevate. It's like, think about it, like if you are in a small space, you can really hardly move around, right? So there's no place for you to move around. How will you develop? It's impossible because you can not even move, right? The more space you create around you, the easier it becomes for you to also declutter your thoughts, because now you have that elevated feeling within. So that clarity becomes kind of inevitable, because now you have that space around you that allows you to take yourself from this stuckness to becoming that person who is clear and who is aware, very aware, and very, very alert. So when you have the combination of these two, it becomes very simple and very easy for you to decide what's important. And when you know what's important, this is how you start by decluttering your priorities, and you start really putting your life in order by decluttering your priorities, or by, let's say, organizing your priorities and making sure that you focus on your priorities. I used to always say, when I used to work in the corporate world, because people will come to us and they will ask us all the time to do stuff for them, right? And everything is important for everybody, right? So if I would be sitting there and I'm doing my job, and then somebody comes out of nowhere and like, I need this now, it's very urgent and it's very important. And I'm like, okay, to whom? This question is a major question for you when you are working on organizing or decluttering your priorities. Let's say organizing, because it's like when you organize your priorities, they get decluttered consequently, So you want to realize, or you want to always remember to ask yourself this question: is this important for me, first and foremost? Because at the end of the day, priorities are your priorities, and other people's priorities are not necessarily yours, right? Because what's important to them does not necessarily mean that it is important to you. And the same thing goes for them. What's important to you and what your priority is not necessarily theirs. So the more you have clarity in your mind, because now you have decluttered your thoughts, the easier for you it would be to remember and to point, or to put your finger on the things that are important to you, not to your father, not to your mother, not to your siblings, not to your spouse, not to anyone in the world except you. When you are in that position, decluttering or organizing your priorities becomes such an easy exercise. Is like me drinking a sip of water. So it becomes that simple. All you need to do, remember, is clear your space, clear your thoughts. And I gave you a couple of hints of how to clear your thoughts, right? Because like you can do the breath work. And what I will do actually is I will probably prepare a breath work and share it with you in the coming couple of weeks, maybe not next week, maybe the week after. I'll prepare a breath work exercise that will help you to do this kind of thoughts decluttering, and you can become more focused in your mind. I'll give you one more hint about how to declutter your thoughts. Like whenever you want to do something, remember to always set one intention. If you set one intention, your thought process becomes very focused, and the focus now is that intention. So this is another hint for you as to how you can declutter your thoughts. Okay? So just to recap, today we focused on 3 things related to clutter. Number 1 is the importance of decluttering your space, and also the importance of keeping that space decluttered or clutter-free once you declutter it. Second, I mentioned, or I talked about, how important it is to declutter our thoughts and where our thoughts are, hindering us, and how did they start, where did they start, and the importance of actually unlocking or unblocking those thoughts and unlocking them and really removing them if they are limiting us. There are lots of thoughts that we've been developing over the years that are limiting us. Some of them are not limiting us and they are very important to stay, but a lot of them are limiting us, and it's really very, very important for us to remove them so that we can move forward, so that we do not get stuck. And like I said, sometimes we also go backwards. So we want to make sure that we don't get stuck, we don't go backwards, and the only way for us is forward. And number 3, once we do those 2, so the decluttering of the space and the decluttering of our thoughts, that clarity that we have and that abundance in the space around us, because when you remove things from your space, you become magnetic, you become more like, you start attracting things. And I urge you to try this and let me know, let me know what happens. It's important that you go through this exercise to just remove yourself from that space and see when you empty your space from everything that is really blocking your energy and blocking the energy of anything that's going to come to you, you will see how magnetic you become and how your space becomes magnetic as well. And the third thing that we talked about is, once you declutter all of this and once you have clarity in your space and in your thoughts, then it becomes very easy for you to organize. Let's not say declutter. So you reevaluate and you reorganize your priorities that were probably different when you had a full space and when you had a cluttered mind. And with that, my friend, I come to my invitation to you. So my invitation to you is, if you are that person, if you have a lot of clutter, whether physical or in your mind or in your priorities or in your relationships, I have developed a program that has a lot of focus on clutter and actually decluttering our life, decluttering everything that is not serving us anymore, freeing the space around us so that we give room, or we make room for the new things that are important to us, so that we make room to attract the things that we really want and desire in our life. This is how important decluttering is. And I've been doing this for so long. Decluttering for me is really a major thing. And this is why it is actually part of my program, because my program is not only based on decluttering, it's based on decluttering physically, but also decluttering our limitations, decluttering everything that is hindering us in our life, everything that is stopping us from becoming the best version of who we truly are. And we are all amazing. I genuinely believe that every single person out there is deep down inside an amazing person and a good person. We just have different circumstances. We've been through different life exposures. And my invitation for you is to check this out. And if you feel like this is the right thing for you, and if you feel like this can help you elevate your lifestyle, elevate your being from like where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow, All you need to do is let me know in the comments below, or send me a message on Messenger, on Facebook, or even send me an email. I'd like to hear from you. If this is something that is good for you, or that you feel like I can help you with it, let me know. And I will share tomorrow with the replay a link for you to get on a call with me. So we can get on a call. We'll go together through a process. I will get to know you. You will get to know me. I'll get to know your current situation. Where are you at? What is it that you are going through? Where are you having hurdles? Where are you having issues? Or where are you having blockages? And I'll give you a lot of hints as to how you can, start getting rid of the things that are limiting you, the things that are not allowing you to move forward. And at the end of this call, if I find that I can really, really help you and that we are a good fit to work together, I will tell you how working with me looks like. So all you need to do is let me know that you want to do this, and I will share with the replay. If you are watching the replay tomorrow, you will get, or anytime, as a matter of fact, there will be a link in the post with the replay, or in the email with the replay, for getting on a call with me. It's called the Champions League call. I love it, because you are all champions. So all you need to do is set up this call, and we can talk, and then we will see if I'm the right fit. Remember, I'll let you know how it looks like to work with me, and we can take it from there. And with that, my dear pearls, first of all, I thank you all for being here with me today. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your your points and your feedback. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate that you spent the time to go through this webinar with me. And I will see you again next week with a new topic and a new thing to go through. And with that, I'm going to bid you farewell until next week, and I'll see you again. Ciao, ciao.